special edition of Healing Is Gangsta, where we take the streets, the industry, and overall real people and bring them together in a therapeutic manner so we can all heal together. Today I got a special guest with me, and she's gonna kick a little song for you. I would like to welcome Raw the Poet. Come on up.
This piece is called Late Bloomer. I'm from the city that never sleeps, across 110th Street. I'm from where the last poets were the first rappers, when rappers rapped over break beats. Pop lock and block parties where hip hop came to be. Spanish Harlem, El Barrio. I still breathe it in my sleep. Boricua. I'm speaking Spanglish in the bodega with my neighbor Victor Vega. Yo no quiero cuchifrito, but I told him I'll pay him later for those quarter waters and hour laters. I favor the cherry flavor. I'm playing catch and kiss and French kissing in pissy elevators. So innocent the kid, this adolescent behavior. I strayed away from the spotlight and center stage. A young girl born and raised with religious ways. I stayed on my deen. Siratul Mustaqim. My dreams deferred and shattered my self-esteem. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rahim. Rahimah. Rahimah. Umi's baby. Abi raised me. Domestic violence blindsided me and made me half crazy. A raging introvert, hiding behind a veil, hijab, and a long skirt. Silenced into submission, never knowing my own worth. Praying for God's forgiveness while the devil did his dirt. And I'm still trying to purge. But my prayers turned into curse words, spit fiercely over the years into growth spurts, a learning curve, and I've lost time. It's flown by. These broken wings on a caged bird. Who am I? I'm skating by and there's no time to sit and dream. I'm older now with a young child. She's a mini me. She's picking up on my false starts to help promise. I'm just trying to stay relevant. I'm just being honest. I'm sure I'd be unstoppable if I could stay the course. I need some favors, some blessings, and some open doors. I'm done with daddy's religion, can't carry the torch. If you could put me back on track, Lord, I'm all yours. Sincerely yours, Late Bloomer. Where have you been, my love? I'm standing on the other side of keeping my cool. I bent the rules, broke a few, snapping them in two. Caught up in my feelings when I'm speaking my truth. Trying to keep up appearances might shorten my fuse. My duty used to be short a couple of screws. Depression got the better of me battling blues. The madness in my mind, I had to turn it loose. If I can't put it into words, what's a poet to do? They're saying I'm a late bloomer shooting too high. I pray my faith is deep enough to teach me to fly. I'm so tired of getting high, trying to comfort the beast. Suicide was tempting me, but the attempt was a tease. That's the sound of my pain, the talk of a sinner. I'm standing on faith. Give me the walk of a winner for all the decades I've lost. Give me the gift of speech. Maybe a preacher man could teach me how to keep God in my reach. I feel like I've been cheated and I can't beat the odds. I finally had to have that conversation with God. It's hard to hear him speaking when I'm on level 10. He spoke into my heart and whispered, this ain't the end. I asked him for a direction at the fork in the road. And since I'm asking questions, can he lighten my load and take control? I'm broken. Can he put me back whole? Heavy is the burden in the seat of my soul. He said my gifts were greater than the pain that I knew. He had to break me open just to make me brand new. The chosen ones are few, and he needed a muse. With every blessing, there's a burden. What's a poet to do? Confessions of a late bloomer long overdue. He told me that my melanin extended my youth. I've been running off adrenaline to tell you the truth. Now I gotta get my walk right. Hallelujah, I ain't the same. Thank you.
Rah, what's up? And everything, right? Before we get into, your beautiful poem that you just spit, because I know there was a lot of like personal experiences that I caught in there. Before we get into that, I just wanted to introduce you a little bit. Rahimah Yoba. She's done a lot in this game, and I'm gonna let her talk about some of the things she's done real quick.
I come from a film and TV background, so I'm a costume designer. I've been doing poetry for a while. I don't really do spoken word too much anymore, so hence the nerves that I had.
Oh, no, that was good.
But yeah, mostly costume designing for film and TV. So yeah.
You want to talk some of the recent stuff you've worked on recently?
I just finished a tour with B2K. We did the Millennium Tour, so I designed, like sketched and designed their costumes. We did that for like 4 months. And before that, I was doing a Netflix film that shot in Memphis and Paris. It was about wine and barbecue, hence Memphis and Paris. And then before that, another Netflix film. And then when we met was after I did Unsolved.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, Tupac and
like
Biggie.
A period piece. Like we were just talking about that. You had all the 90s gear, like perfect. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about your brother real quick?
Yeah,
he
got me started in the business. Malik Yoba, yeah.
Malik Yoba. Shouts out to him. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, clap it up. That's a legend right there.
Hi, Dame.
Acting like shit.
That's Harlem.
So we got Harlem in the building.
We grew up in 1199. 1199. She knows every version of Dame Dash, like, private school Dame Dash, hood Dame Dash, every Dame Dash. So, it's just a coincidence that y'all know each other. Right? Mm-hmm. But, it's like, wow, I haven't seen her in a while.
I know.
Look the same.
Of course you do too.
We've been excited about this show since I told
her. Because she was like real bad, spoiled Dame.
Yeah.
They used to terrorize her and her sister.
Yes.
She knows bad Dame. She knows everything. She's seen everything.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, this is family right here. You feel me? Yeah, no doubt.
Like Malik, Malik was here.
Yeah, no, he told me. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. So, he needs some therapy. We're gonna talk about that later. Yeah. Okay. So, man, let's get to that poem. I mean, you had a lot of your life in there that I heard.
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about like our experiences. Like I grew up Muslim. So this wasn't normal. Like I had to be in hijab and the whole thing. But I really wanted to be a dancer when I was younger. So I used to cut school and go dance in music videos because that's what we did like in the 90s. And then, I was always an artist on some level. I went to the Performing Arts High School. I studied visual arts. But my passion was dancing. But because I just happened to know how to draw, I just figured I'd pursue that because I knew being Muslim, that was like not gonna happen. I was not gonna be running around with a tutu and hijab at the same time. So I had to make a choice. Right. So in order to like please my dad, there's 6 of us, I'm the youngest of 6, I just decided to practice Islam. And it was challenging because it went against who I naturally was, you know what I mean? But I think because I was the youngest, my attitude was, let me try to carry the torch. Because no one else, my other 5 siblings didn't practice Islam, which is why I say in the poem, I can't carry the torch anymore because it became less about God and religion and a lifestyle, and it became more about me trying to please my dad. Yeah. So I had to let that go. And then my mom was a Buddhist. She had left my dad. Yeah, well, she was Muslim and she left my dad when I was 3. So I grew up with my dad. I didn't grow up with my mom. So my dad raised us, and she was a Buddhist. So when I met her again, when I was a teenager, I practiced Buddhism, and then I became a Christian. So I've been around the block.
Well, that's interesting because I remember we were talking about that a little bit before. Your dad raised you.
Yeah, which was he wasn't really.
Yeah.
Okay, he looked really mean
Okay.
because of how he. No, it's kind of true. Like he just had a really strong presence. He wasn't a
Right.
big man, but he had a really strong presence. You know, he used to be friends with Malcolm X back in the day. So my siblings knew Malcolm's kids, but I
Yeah.
was younger.
Okay.
But that was, you know, the 60s, and he was Muslim, and, you know, he had these kids he had to raise and try to teach them or teach us how to be, how to not be a product of our environment. Like Dame knows, like we grew up in Spanish Harlem, like it was
Right.
in the middle of the crack era, like in the 80s and 90s. So it was very hard not to get caught up in that lifestyle, even if you had parents like we had. But my dad did such a brilliant job. None of us wound up in jail and drugs.
It shows. I was gonna say, with you and
Yeah,
your
like
brother, it
it's
shows.
when I think about like where we came from, and like I think about when I go back to the hood, like, and I see people I grew up with and they still live in the building, and it's like, wow, like, you know, I'm just grateful that we had the parents that saw ahead. Like my name would have been Myers, my last name, but my dad changed his name to Abdullah Yoba.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when he became Muslim.
Right,
So
right.
he wanted us to have a name that wasn't associated with slavery, you know. So he changed, and then he became
okay.
Muslim. So then we all have Muslim names.
Right.
But it was hard growing up because he was like very militant and very like, you know, you gotta like pray 5 times a day and do the thing. No, don't eat pork. So like Hostess cupcakes, like back in the day, I remember that so vividly as a kid, because that's something every kid ate, but it had lard in it. So little things like that.
Yeah.
Kids that went to church on Sunday or went to Catholic school and had, I forget what they called this thing they did every Wednesday. I wanted to be a part of that so bad, but I was like the weird Muslim kid. You know what I mean?
Now,
So it's kind of.
It like I said, you had a very unique upbringing in the way that we often hear about the single mom, right? And rightfully so.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a you know, a trend that's been going on in the hood for a long time, but we never really hear about like situations where the father
Yeah.
is the one that's present. You know, the single father. Speak on that. What was the balance like? I remember you were talking about, you know, because we were talking about like our mutual experiences, and whereas I was raised by a single mom,
Right.
you being raised by a single dad, you know, what was that balance? What was missing? You know, time?
Femininity.
Yeah.
Like I had to figure out a lot of stuff on my own. You know, my dad had like, he would have like women that would help take care of us. Like there's one woman in particular, I called her my godmother. Her husband had gone to prison, and my dad helped him become Muslim while he was in prison, and, you know, helped him. We used to go visit him. So we would go to her house after school. So it was that balance, but she wasn't my mom. You know what I mean?
Right.
So although my dad was trying to raise us to be kings and queens and husbands and wives instead of boyfriends and girlfriends, that was like a slogan of his. It was challenging because it's like I can't raise a boy to be a man. You know, my dad couldn't raise a girl to be a man. So, I mean, a woman. So I would, in turn, emulate him more than listen to what he said I should be. Some things I listen to, like when I'm in a relationship, I treat my dude like a king because that's how I was raised. Like I don't think about it. I don't mind cooking and cleaning. But then as an adult, as a child watching my dad go out and get the money, get the job, get the this, there's that side of me. So I struggle between being domesticated and then wanting to be like the career woman. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it's a hard balance because, like I said, he tried to teach me how to be a woman, which he couldn't.
Yeah.
But I wound up emulating his actions.
What was that like coming up in, you know, with that dynamic with your father raising you? How was that coming up in Harlem? Like,
it was dope. Like Dame knew my dad. Like when people saw him, it was because of how he dressed. He had long locks. He had a white beard. He used to wear kufi on his head, and like he actually looked like, I hate to say this, but like a black Osama bin Laden. His nose, his face, his beard, his clothes. So when people would see him, they would think he either had an accent or was from somewhere else because he looked like he was from the Middle East, Africa kind of thing. But everyone respected him. You know, I think he just had a way of helping people and bringing people together. Yeah. So I don't know anything else. Like when I was younger, we couldn't just run to McDonald's and have food. He would make us set the table, sit down, cook food, prepare it. Everyone had to sit down at the same time, 6:30, be home, you know. Right. So he was very, very militant, you know, about our upbringing. Right. So I appreciate it. I even appreciate being Muslim because it teaches you discipline.
Absolutely.
It teaches you how, when you have to stop 5 times a day and pray, like clean before you pray and then, pray. It teaches you not only discipline, but also how to have reverence for something greater than yourself. So throughout the day, even though I'm not Muslim anymore, it's hard for me to just go throughout the day and not reference God on some level. I'm like, thank you, God, for like the smallest things. You know what I mean? Because of that, So those things I appreciate. Islam is actually a lot more peaceful of a religion than what we see in the media.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, assalamu alaikum, it alone means peace be upon you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it gets kind of a bad rap.
Yeah.
As being like this violent religion, and that's not really the case,
Yeah, like having your father a steady presence, right? Mm-hmm. How are you able to reconcile, what were some of the emotions that you were feeling like with your mom not being there?
I didn't know anything else. Like, she left when I was 3.
Yeah.
I have no memory of her. Like little things like this one gown that she had that was it was like almost like a kimono. Mm-hmm. Like, I have this tat, and I love Asian art. It's a geisha, and I'm gonna get like koi fish going up here. But I often wonder like what draws me to that culture, and I feel like it was this one jade green piece that I see it in my head now thinking about it, but I don't really remember her. Yeah. So I didn't see her again until I was probably like 14, maybe.
Well, how old were you when you realized? Because I know as a kid coming up without my pops, there were times where I was just like, why, or what the hell? You know what I mean? Were there any of those? Were there any anger, sadness, anything like that? What ages were you when you started like, oh, she's not here? Like,
I grew up in a very violent household. Yeah. Like, when I talk about domestic violence in that piece, I don't expand on it, but it was pretty bad. Like, when my dad married my stepmom, it was just violent. Like, the cop stories at our house.
How old were you at that time?
I was like 8 until I was like 12. Okay. Like,
also, there was a female presence at some point.
Yeah, but she was not a very nice person.
Right.
And as an adult now, like, I wish I knew her now. Like, I wish I could understand it better, because after my dad passed, I started hearing stories about like how he was not a nice person. Like, he was kind of messed up to a lot of people. So I wonder now, as an adult, having experience in relationships, if she was reacting to who he was, or if that was who she was.
Meaning your mom?
My stepmom.
Oh, your stepmom.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because it was very violent. And she had 4 kids of her own. Yeah. And then when I was like 16, it got so violent, he had to pretend like I ran away. So he like packed my stuff, and I went to live with my sister in Queens. So I had a very like disjointed household, moving, like nothing was stable. I never felt like, oh, this is my house. You know what I mean?
Did you find yourself feeling like anxious a lot? Like, because when you're unstable like that, you never know
very,
what's gonna
very,
happen.
very insecure. Like, I saw, I was telling you back there, like this dude posted a video of me from New York Undercover, and I know I was like 21 then. I'm 46 now, and I'm looking at this video like I look 12.
Oh, even New York Undercover, for those, I don't know if there's any millennials watching or anything, but it was like one of the dopest shows of the 90s. It was the first show where I was like, oh, them cops is cool. You know what I'm saying? So do your research, go to YouTube. But yeah, New York Undercover. But yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah. But it was just a very tough time, because I never felt secure with myself, and then I felt the guilt of not being Muslim, and then like just lost. Like, when I looked at that video, I was like almost crying. I was like, who was I in that video? But I don't remember being that like juvenile, speaking, like acting. I just looked lost, and I was just like, wow.
At that time, I know it's hard to when you're in the moment, it's hard to like hindsight is like 2020, like I always say. But when you look at it from now, how did you see yourself dealing with some of the confusion and some of that instability at that time?
Drugs.
Okay.
Weed. Like, I literally smoked so much. I remember when I started smoking like at a young age, I just did not stop. It was just like, oh, this is not like a real drug. This is something I can do to just feel better, and it kind of dulls the pain. But what started to happen was I'm naturally highly intuitive, which I've recently discovered that this is a real gift. It's not a joke. I felt like it would dull some of that a little bit. And I didn't want to feel numb anymore. You know what I mean? I wanted to be aware and feel feelings. But I probably should have gone to therapy when I was young. I didn't, That's
Yeah.
why you're my friend now.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Free sessions.
Yeah, and I mean, I ask that because a lot of times there's a lot of emotions from those traumatic experiences that are still not dealt with, but yet they rear their ugly head into your present life.
Yeah.
As far as you growing up, like where do you see some of that? Like, do you see any times where you were reacting because of those emotions, because of
Absolutely. I think I made really horrible choices in relationships. And still, even now, I think a lot of it is based on me wanting to feel validated, not having a mom to teach me about the beauty of my attributes. I didn't really value myself. You know what I mean? I felt like, okay, who cares? Like, I'll just like be with this person. And, I dated women for like 10 years, like solid. But it's because I was sexually abused when I was younger. So it was rough. It was rough.
Yeah. And, being sexually abused, that's something that sticks with you for life.
Yeah, because what happens is it puts you out of sorts. Like you start associating that feeling with someone liking you, or you know what I mean? So it does a lot. Like, I have a young child, she's 7, and I'm like, did anybody touch you? Like, tell me. All the time. I'm always like asking her.
And depending, especially the younger you are when that happens, sometimes our brains aren't even fully developed to be able to handle those sensations.
That's exactly what happens. Yeah. So you start thinking like this is a normal way to feel, and not realizing that it's only appropriate or most appropriate for an older adult. Yeah. You know what I mean? But that's what happens when kids are violated.
Right.
It's a serious issue because a lot of people don't feel comfortable to talk about it. Like, they're like, you're so open. I'm like, I have to be. There's so many people hurting. Like, if I can help one person, to get past that feeling, that's my job's done.
Well, I know one thing that intrigued me about when I was talking to you was some of the things you do currently to deal with some of that. Because I know when I deal with clients and they talk about that stuff, the physical effects of those things start to come up. Heart beating faster, breathing harder, sweating, where they just don't want to face it. They'll just shut down. What are some of the things that you do now to deal with some of that? I know we were talking about like some of the Buddhism, some of the meditation, things like that. Like, what are some of the things?
Well, after I became a Buddhist, then I became a Christian twice, I like to say, because I stopped and I became a Buddhist and then stopped and then did it again, I think religion played a big part in my life, organized religion, because I needed something to be accountable for or to. So if I knew every Sunday I had to go to church, I was like, okay, at least I can focus on that. And of course, like scriptures and stuff. I still believe in Christ as a being and a prophet and that sort of thing, but I don't practice Christianity at all. I don't practice any religion just because I've learned too much about other stuff that it just stopped making sense. But if it's a mantra, if it's like when my kids were dying, I had twins that passed away. They were born too early. I was pulling out all the stops. I was like, Namyo Renge Kyo, Namyo, and then I was like, and I was like, oh, Father who art in heaven, like I literally was like, give me a rabbit's foot, give me whatever. Like, so I think just throughout the years, like I've learned to draw on each religion that I practice. There's something powerful in it. Like, I like the idea of cause and effect in Buddhism. I like the idea of being in a meditative state. I like the idea of Christianity, like just be like what Christ represented. Be good to your neighbor, treat people kind. I like the discipline of Islam. So I try to just pull from different things depending on what it is. Like, for someone like myself who has suffered from depression for years, I've learned now, like, I can feel it coming up and I'm like, distract yourself, and I don't care what it is. I'll do 10 push-ups. If I'm at work, I'll just start like sketching something.
It's like mindfulness techniques, basically.
You have to find something to focus on the present, because that's what it does. Like, when you feel this coming, I notice a lot of times I'm either thinking too far into the future or too way in the past. Like, I start thinking about stuff that happened.
That's where anxiety comes from.
And it comes from that. Oh, okay.
Normally when people are, especially with anxiety, but depression too, depending if it, because some depression is a biological issue where there's a real chemical imbalance. But there's different levels of depression. But most of that stuff tends to deal with the past or the future. These are the things that people worry about.
Right.
You know, worrying about things that have happened already. You know, or they can't get over certain things that have happened. You know, or what's gonna happen.
Right.
You know, and they kind of skip over the present, which is why mindfulness, you know, the things that you're doing are so, you know, and,
I like
and it's
that.
dope that you're doing it naturally.
Yeah, I didn't know. I just like one day it happened and I was like, I don't want to be sad today. And I shouldn't say sad because that's not what depression is. And I try to tell people it's not, oh, don't be sad. It's not, it's a deep pain more so than I feel sad. You know what I mean? So I figured out ways to counteract it and just balance it a little bit better, you know.
What age were you when you first started feeling like, you know, depression?
Probably like 12. I was young. I was like your son's age. Like I don't ever remember a time when I was like, life is amazing. It was like, oh wait, I still have to do this? Okay, let me figure out what to do with my life. It was never like a moment where I woke up like, I just feel amazing. I'm elated. I'm gonna do yoga. Like I did yoga, but it was because I didn't want to go crazy, not because I woke up with like this great feeling of being alive, you know? Yeah,
and listening to your poem, right? There was so many things in there. One thing I wanted, you know, you talked about the twins that you lost, which I definitely want to talk about that, you know, at your pace, of course.
Oh yeah, it's something I talk about often because it's therapy, it's therapeutic.
But I also wanted to talk about how it was with your mom, that reintroduction.
You know what's weird? Like I can't remember I feel like I was 14 and I think she came to my school, maybe, or she remembers her buying me a dress from Alexander's, which was like a Macy's back in the day in New York for junior high school graduation. I don't remember that at all. I just remember I saw her and I just kept seeing her. But see, the thing is that my mom wasn't like a deadbeat mom who left, which is what I thought. My dad was like very violent. Like I thought she left
with her as well,
but I didn't know this. Okay. Like my dad that I grew up with was the best dad in the world. But as I got older, people were like, you know, your mom didn't leave like that. She actually ran out the house barefoot, 12-degree weather on Valentine's Day with a nightgown. I'm like, wait, what's happening? You know, but my version, just knowing how fabulous she is now, I'm assuming she packed her bag, she had her heels on, and she politely left. And that wasn't the case, you know.
So that was good. So you guys were able to kind of talk through some of these.
Yeah, like when I meet, but I can't even, which is kind of crazy. I can't pinpoint an exact time when she re-entered my life. I just can't. It doesn't even come to me like when that was. But see, my siblings, my dad. It was very interesting. So it was 6 of us. Mm-hmm. My older sister left when I was 14. After my mom left when I was, my mom left when I was 3. My older sister left when I was 4. And then like 7, 8, 10, like those ages, my siblings all left. Like they ran away and went to live with my mom in the Bronx. So by the time I was like 13, it was just me and one of my sisters, and my dad remarried with just as many kids that just left. Right. And that's when all the violence happened. And it was like, it was terrible. Like I would call the cops and they would be like, yeah, we know, apartment 1011. And I'm like, wait, how do you know my apartment? You know, so.
Was there some abandonment there on, as far as the feeling of abandonment from all of these people kind of leaving your life?
I guess like a lifetime of it. But when you're younger, like I try to talk to Zoe, my daughter, about this stuff now because no one talked to me about this stuff. It was just happening. Right. And then you just like, oh, this is normal. But then you go to other people's homes and it's like, wait, your parents live together and they're not fighting all the time? So I thought it was normal to have that kind of upbringing until I was removed from it. And then I realized this is really shitty. Like, who decided, what 2 adults, my dad and my stepmom, decided that this is what they were going to do. Yeah. But when you don't have the consciousness and you're not aware of yourself, your ego is driving everything, which is what both of them were doing. You know what I mean? So
what were some of the triggers you dealt with? Like, I'm sure there's things that you would come across in life that would either subconsciously or consciously remind you of those experiences, you know?
I have a very short temper, so I try not to get into arguments with people because like I feel like I just kind of black out and just like it gets bad, you know, whether it's verbally or I'm too grown to be fighting people, but it gets really bad. So I just, but certain like things that would trigger me now, I don't really have triggers so much. I just know my temperament. Okay. Like if I don't manage the inside of my body, like my emotions, it's a wrap. Yes. Yeah. So it's a every day, like several times a day, I have to be conscious of what I'm saying and speaking and doing, and you know, because it will take me out.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine because you know dealing with that kind of physical abuse, sexual abuse, just the instability. A lot of clients that I talk to deal with like triggers, things that remind them of things, if they see a fight or if they're around loud noises or, can bring them back into those experiences.
Yeah.
Do you remember ever feeling like that at all?
I think mostly probably in relationships. Like if I had an experience in a relationship that reminded me of, like recently I broke up with someone. And I think the bigger part of my pain this happened last week, so it's really fresh. And it was a 2-year relationship that went south. He had a whole girlfriend for 4 years that I knew nothing about. But what for me, I think most of my removement from me being removed from his life and he from mine, it's probably less about the actual, like I was so in love and more about I feel abandoned. I feel like, wait, what just happened? Because it happened suddenly, you know what I mean? And it was just like, I never saw him again. Like he left a couple months ago and then.
And I can see how that can take you back to like what we were talking earlier about people leaving.
Yeah.
Constantly people leaving and you're almost ready for that, and unconsciously, and it can cause problems in relationships as far as forming them, because everybody wants the connection. And I say this over and over again, people want the connection, but they'll fear it at the same time. And, you've had a lot of instances where people leave, even, you're talking about your twins.
Yeah, that was trippy because I thought they were doing well. They were in the hospital. They were born at like 1.7, 1.8 pounds. This is in 2009. And they just got sick, increasingly sick. So it went from like, okay, to like here, to like, okay, to like, okay, what are you going to do? You got to like keep them on life support because they're always going to be like this. So making the decision to like unplug them was really challenging because I was like, I gotta go through this twice. They're gonna die separately. But they wound up literally dying at the same time, which was weird because one was on oxygen and one was on life support. But it was God because I was just like, I can't do this twice,
I mean, that's as a father, that's some of the craziest things that somebody can go through.
Yeah.
The fact that you're able to articulate. I was gonna say, talk about that process that you went through, the grieving process that,
I tried to kill myself. Like I literally was like, I took all these weird ass drugs, sat in the back of my car with their ashes. And then I was like, just go with it. And then I was like, I must have fallen asleep for 4 hours or so. And I woke up and I was like, am I in heaven? Because I could see. I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't laugh, but I'm only laughing because I have to.
It's okay.
But okay. I looked up and I saw the sun setting and I was like, am I in heaven? I was like, I'm still in my fucking car. I can't even kill myself right. And I got pissed off, like, but then like I realized like I wouldn't have my daughter, like she wouldn't be here now, I wouldn't be able to talk about this and heal other people. But it was pretty terrible. Like it was a hard time.
Because there's different stages of this grief period. You go through the initial loss, on top of the abandonment issues that you have already. And then, the sadness or anger. Sometimes people question God. What the hell? Why did this happen?
Yeah, it was pretty horrible. Like I didn't understand it. I was like, what was the point in me even? But I also realized because I had never dealt with a lot of other things, I started doing different kind of drugs, and I was like, oh, maybe that's why this happened. So I could like clean up and like not, be crazy.
And that's, first of all, I just want to give her a round of applause for like being able to get through that because that's some crazy shit.
Yeah, I've had a crazy life.
Especially with that ordeal, getting through that. And, I want to thank you for being able to like talk about that because, so many people are, I've known people that have lost their kids, obviously, and they still can't really talk about that.
Yeah, I think the key is you have to talk about it often, like to whoever will listen. Like you have to, some part of it, even if it's to yourself. And because most of my poetry comes from pain, as you can see, I write about it. Like I have a whole poem that's just about that experience, of being a mom and then not being a mom and having a Mother's Day. Because during the time they lived through Mother's Day and then they died. So I was just like, what's happening to my life? But when I think about that time period now, I almost feel like an out of body experience. Like I feel like I went through that, like, because it's so weird. Like, it's such a great loss, you know.
Was
And
there some dissociation there where, meaning sometimes, you know, we consciously do it or sometimes we unconsciously do it where we'll block certain shit, you know, and it's hard for us to even picture ourselves in that situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you might not want to look at it for whatever reason. That's why people have trouble processing things.
Because
they
it's
can't
not
face
pretty.
it.
Yeah,
exactly.
you don't want to deal with it. It doesn't look good. It doesn't smell good. It doesn't feel good. So it's
Right.
like, why do I want to live in this space with this pain?
Yeah.
But I probably should have gone to therapy sooner, but I didn't. I just wrote about it and did poetry about it. And,
That's therapy.
you know, yeah. So I wanted to like, and I think for me too, like when people go through traumatic experiences, I think the thing I kept doing was, I don't want people to think, I don't want people to think, I don't want people to feel, I want to look normal. And it's like, what does that even mean? Like, why was I so concerned about how I looked to people as opposed to, am I really okay on the inside? You know, I didn't think about that. I was just trying to like get better visually, you know what I mean?
Well, I think one of the best things that you can get from those, you know, those experiences, that one in particular, is when, you know, at the thought of going through things,
Yeah.
you were able to come out of that. You were able to gather yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Refocus, recenter, process. You know what I mean? And that's a source of strength that you can always draw from
Yeah.
at any time. You know, the fact that you were able to get through that, you know? So, you know, that helps with thinking about the future, about things that come. Because when things happen, you know, a lot of times people will buckle or they'll worry about things that are about to happen. You know, I always tell my clients, you know, remember that you got through this. You got through this tough ordeal.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to give yourself props for that.
You do.
You know,
That's the thing too, like really honoring yourself and giving yourself props. Like you
Yeah.
said, like this breakup that I'm going through now is really hard because
Let's talk about
literally
that.
it's terrible. Like the last 2 years of my life have been a lie. I was with this dude. He lived in different states, an actor. I won't say his name. Won't blow up his
all
spot
good.
all the way. But we were really tight and I worked so much. You know, I was just on tour with B2K, so I'm traveling around the country.
Right.
I did a film in Memphis and Paris, so I'm traveling. I was working and traveling, and I never even thought to say, let me come to your house where you live. I didn't care because I was just like, before I met him, this is the thing, I was doing so much work on myself because of what we're talking about.
Right.
I needed to take a break
Absolutely.
from people and, you know.
Absolutely.
But he had a whole nother situation. Like he has a girlfriend for like 4 years and
And
we
he
were
was with
together
you
for
how-
two.
For 2 years.
So like my whole brain, like I woke up this morning and I was like, this really happened, right? Because every time I think of a story with him, I have to picture her in the background watching Netflix or cooking. You know what I mean? I haven't even really fully processed what's happened because there's so many stories that I'm a visual person. So I create images in my head. So I had an image of what his house looked like. I didn't care. Like we were like, oh yeah, well, I'll see you when you get back. But it started getting serious. She found me on Instagram and it just all went to shit.
God bless Instagram.
Thank God for social media. Because at first I was just like, who's sending me this message? And then it was kind of like, and that was heartbreaking because he knew my stories. Like he knew like everything I had been through. I'm very candid when I'm in relationships because I believe that when you enter a relationship, you need to put on the table what your issues are so that you can either say you're working on them or the person can know what your triggers are.
And going off of what you said earlier about, you know, coming up raised by a man and all those different things, how you cater to your man.
And I don't think about it. Like, it's not like,
Yeah.
oh, you shouldn't be doing that. It's like I actually find pleasure in it, hence the geisha on my arm. Like, I like the lifestyle of, like, the man, like, dating women for a long time. I dated studs, like, really, really masculine women. And I would be that way, too, with them, you know. But I like the male and female balance in a relationship, which is why I'm choosing men now. I still have attraction to women, but I don't, you know, I like being with a man. But that balance of catering to your man, I just love it. Like it feeds me, you know. So I did that with him, and I gave. I don't half step. Like when I'm in a relationship, you're gonna get everything I have inside of my being, and I gave that to him, not knowing that somebody else is doing. Like it's mind blowing thinking about it. You know, it's very very painful. You know.
What did you feel when you found out what was happening? Like what were some of the, you know, obviously.
Well, he had cheated on me before, like 6 months prior, but I'm very liberal. Like one of the benefits or things that I loved about our relationship was that he accepted that I may want to be with a girl one day. So it was fine that we had this like, not really polyamorous, but we were kind of, you know, but then we were like, okay, let's just be by ourselves or whatever. But then I didn't know he was sleeping with somebody else. So the first time it happened, it was super traumatic because the girl pretended like she was a friend of herself. And then she created a fake avatar page on Facebook. Everything I just said. It sounds nuts because it was.
You know, like I
So
said,
I'm trying
God bless
to,
social media.
yeah, I'm trying to read through messages like, is this real? And it was so jarring to my body. Like what am I looking at? I tried to call her or click on it, whatever. So that had happened and all was forgiven. And it was a journey back to us trusting each other, me trusting him. So for this to happen, this feels like, I don't even know. Like it feels like a Lifetime movie.
Right? I mean,
And
it
it's
just
mind
happened.
fucky because it's like, wait, she was there the whole time. Like, I just can't wrap my head around all the times we talked and like planned things together, did things together, that there's a whole nother person that has no idea. And he didn't like to post on social media. Ladies, that's always a sign. If someone tells you they don't want to post, whatever the fucking reasons are, it's not because of that. So I'm thinking he's a celebrity, has a lot of female followers. I'm not tripping. I'm like, I'm not that pressed. Like, you know. But then sometimes certain things I would want to post and I felt like I couldn't because he had this like thing like, I don't want people, you know, people like to talk crap about, you know, celebrities' relationships. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Ha, ha, ha. My brother doesn't really post his girlfriends. And I'm trying to like justify what he's saying to me, only to realize that that's the reason because and they still found me. It was a few chicks.
So here's this abandonment and betrayal again.
Betrayal, abandonment, and I just felt crazy. Like I still wake up because it just happened last Sunday. I still feel like, what just happened to my relationship?
You're
like,
still readjusting.
Yeah, he met my daughter. He talked to her dad. Like it was this whole like I was gonna meet his son. We had plans, and then it was like, wait, what's happening? You know, people cheat, but that's like a whole nother level. That's living a double life. So that feeling of betrayal and feeling like, okay, I trusted this person. I gave him 195% and kept 5% for myself. And this is what you give back is very painful, you know?
And I can imagine it makes it hard to trust again.
Yeah. And I don't want to be jaded. I feel like when my kids died, I told God, I was like, all right, this is the last time I'm going through anything that's traumatic. Like, I'm sorry, you better get it together up there, but I can't, you know, so I refuse to let this situation be worse than that.
Yeah.
But again, it's the choices. I'm making a choice not to let this break me, but it is very hard to like.
Well, I think you're making a very brave choice in facing your emotions.
Yeah.
Which it seems like that's been a consistent thing.
Yeah.
Especially lately with some of your, you know, later experiences.
Yeah.
You know, and you should continue to do that.
Yeah.
You know, like we were saying that, when we talked, you know, don't be afraid to feel those things. Mm-hmm. You know, feel the anger, feel the sadness,
feel the embarrassment. I
know,
feel embarrassed at my relationship and what happened to it. But I'm okay with saying that in front of people. I don't even care who airs this, where it's going to be.
Well, you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, people need to not feel embarrassed for feeling embarrassed. Like that's a natural feeling when you go through something like this. So
did you have at any point during, you know, I know it's new, at any point during this time, did you feel any like, oh, or maybe I should have did this different, or maybe because a lot of people get into that?
No, I'm so intuitive. I knew the whole time. But this is, again, when you haven't done the work on yourself in therapy, like what I should have done before I even dated him or anyone else, I should have really gone to therapy because instead of me seeing my intuition as insecurity, I would have been clear that it was intuition because my insecurity would have been worked on or worked out or worked through therapy prior to even being with him. So I thought I was crazy. Like that's the part that really messed me up because I
mean, even with therapy though, like you can't control what somebody else does.
Right.
You know what I mean? At the end of the day, and
but at least I feel like I would have been in a stronger foundation with myself, so that when I did get these intuitive hits I know how intuitive I didn't second guess it. And I second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, all the way to whatever number, guess myself, you know.
So it seems like, from what I'm hearing, you're looking for the positives in this.
I have to, because I'm like, this is not about to, from where we came from, like, this is the relationship, 2 years, this is not about to break me down. Get the fuck out of here. I survived so much stuff. It's not going to be some dude that's going to take me out because he decided to have multiple women. Like, it's not happening.
You've been through a lifetime of shit.
Yeah.
Clap it up. Clap it up. And again, you know, one thing, another thing that we talked about that I want to say real quick is that you're also about what's next. Okay, how am I going to deal with this? You're not staying trapped, which is what a lot of people do. You know, their world stops, the day-to-day stops, which, you know, when you're going through a grieving process, that's okay. All right, but at some point you do have to, okay, what's next?
Right.
Not just because feeling it is just the beginning. Now, what am I going to do with this?
Right. Which we talked about the other day.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, did you want to?
I started writing a screenplay about it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm gonna produce it.
Dame.
And Dame's
Screenplay.
Zane's gonna help me with it,
Yeah.
like old times.
I already see. I looked right over there as soon as you said that.
But yeah, I have to write it. I have to write about it because the details of it are so trippy that it's just like, wait, this really happened to somebody, you know? And it's not really such a unique story, but I've never experienced it. I don't know. None of my friends have, you know, so I want to tell it and I think it should be told. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to give you props as a woman,
Yeah.
a woman of color, a black woman.
Yeah, thank
Congratulations on
Thank
getting
you.
through all these things
Yes.
and continuing to get through these things and just being a G about it. Can I get another round of applause?
So, you know, I've known you for a while, and for me, your whole life, your family has always been kind of brave and represent strength because you're dressed different, and your ideals were different, and you're always unapologetic about
Yeah.
it. And you know, I've dealt with things that in the moment I'd be like, damn, that wasn't fair. But then I look at overall, I always compare myself to other people. But then I also look at life, you know, these emotions are imminent. It's going to happen to everyone. Death is the one thing that happens to everybody.
Yeah.
You will mourn somebody in this world. It's just a matter of when and the timing of it. And when, like, I'm a strong person that's been, you know, again, I know what you mean to lose somebody and to cry in front of the whole world. And, you know, be like, whatever, man. You know, I lost Aaliyah, the love of my life. You know what I'm saying? And the only way I could make sense of it was I'm so strong that the only reason why this happened to me was so that other people can know how to act when shit like that happens to them. You know what I mean? So our pain is just like, you know, in every religion, someone gets sacrificed so other people don't have to feel things. I look at it like that. So we're warriors, we're superheroes, you know?
Yeah.
And consistently since you've been born, you and your whole family have exercised strength. You know, just being different and not standing in the crowd, and again, being strong and unapologetic about it. Like, you know, Mr. Yoba, you know, he just was like a walking oak. He was all scared of Mr. Yoba.
Yeah, he was pretty scary looking.
But he just was, you know, just, you know, want to play with Mr. Yoba, but you know, everybody was intelligent, still is. Everyone, you know, has achieved things, and everyone has remained solid. But again, it's really like our pain is so other people can learn from it.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
And if we weren't the strong ones, it probably wouldn't be given to us because we can't handle it. You know what I mean? And again, it's about the timing. 'Cause
Yeah.
everybody feels that pain. It's about when. And I'm really happy to see it.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Oh no, thank you. You're being such a good example. And as a person who's been through so much, a black businesswoman who's excelling on multiple levels, is there anything you want to tell anybody that's going through, you know, some of these experiences or that's getting in the business? I mean, whatever you want to say.
As corny as it sounds, keep your head up, Tupac. But yeah, it's the sheer determination. I've learned that when you set a goal, so much shit. My daughter's over there. So much stuff is gonna. I've been cursing this whole time. So much ish has been is gonna happen between you and that goal.
Yeah.
And you just have to keep that in your mind's eye. Like if that's your goal, like I wanted to be a dancer when I was younger. I still dance around my house just for
You can
fun or
still do
whatever.
that.
Yeah, but like when I started in the industry, I was a PA and I wanted to be a costume designer. And it took me a long journey. I stopped. I tried to do music for a while and write and do that sort of thing. But I got to my goal. And I think that's the key. Like if you just keep the goal in mind with knowing before you start that journey, so many things are going to happen to try to stop you. You just have to keep that goal in mind and just keep pushing forward towards that. Surround yourself with great people. My friend Devette is here. We've gone through ups and downs, but she's like my homie. Like she has my
You
back.
got a great support system.
I have I didn't want for anything. My friends bought me flowers, like someone died just because I had a breakup.
Right.
And I shared and I was open.
That's
and
the business.
paintings, books on relationships. Like my friends came over 4th of July and put stuff on the grill. We swam in the pool and got in the jacuzzi. And I was like, wow, like I haven't even been in my jacuzzi yet. And just, so it's that kind of thing of having a direction for your life, a goal, and really good people in your space. And I think that will get you through anything. Because I would not even be sitting here if I didn't have the friends I had last week. I was like on my couch crying like several days
That's
in a
therapy,
row.
a support system. That's a big part of therapy.
Yeah, it is.
It helps you stay in therapy. So shout out to y'all right there, support system. You feel me?
And little Zoe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
And thank y'all again. And healing is definitely gangster. You feel me? Thank you, Queen.
Oh, you're welcome.
Next time on Healing Is Gangsta.
But my name is Tia Rudd, and I'm a producer. I've worked on a lot of shows right now. I produce Dish Nation for Fox. I've worked on Paternity Court, Housewives, Dr. Phil, Girlfriends way back in the day, Biggest Loser. I've done a lot of shows that I can't even really remember, to be quite honest, because I've done so many shows. And on top of that, I am an entrepreneur. So it's so good to be here. I remember calling him, I was like 25. I was a super late bloomer. And I was like 25, 26. And I was like, I'm just afraid he gonna leave me like you left me. And he said, baby, nobody's ever gonna do you the way that I did you.